This is TWiT.
One of my first companies was kind of open source. It was a while ago, and I saw a GeoCities page for someone that was making infrared receivers, and it was 99, or it was earlier. It was 97, and it was just the MP3 hype was getting started. People were, for the first time, playing music on their computers, and they wanted to hook it up to their stereo and skip to the next song. And this guy had a GeoCities page for a homemade infrared receiver. So you can skip to the next song on your computer with the infrared remote you already owned for your stereo. And he said on the page he wasn't selling them, but he was selling them on the local university marketplace. So I figured that if he took the time to announce that he wasn't selling them, there was probably demand, and I started buying those from him and selling them. I think the first one I sold, asking people to send dollar bills in an envelope. And because it was open source, it really took off, and we made a business out of it. So that's how I earned money through my student years. I later on did different things. I built submarines and other things that doesn't have anything to do with open source. But I came back into programming, and I fell in love with Ruby and Ruby on Rails. I became a developer. And then at some point I saw this project called Gitlab, and it was 1 year old. It had 300 contributors at that time, and I opened up the code base, and it was just beautiful. It was idiomatic Rails. It was very how you'd expect a Rails project to look, instead of a hobby project where people kind of try to do experimental things with their new things. So I was really excited. I posted on Hacker News, like, hey, do people want to use this as a service? Started gitlab.com. And that's how Gitlab got going. It started as open source in 2011, and it was version control at the time. And now Gitlab is grown. It's not just version control anymore. It is everything from planning an application, creating it, packaging it, releasing it, configuring it, and monitoring it, all in a single application, single data store, single interface. And that's taking off. It has a lot of organic adoption. Over 100,000 organizations are now using GitLab.
And tell me again, what year or when was GitLab actually first put into the public domain?
Yeah, so Dimitri, my co-founder, released it in 2011. And at that time, after a year, it had 300 contributors. By now, it has over 1,900 contributors. As a business, it really started in 2015 when we joined Y-Combinator, an incubator for startups. We were 9 people at the time, and we're now 250 people helping the project.
That's awesome. Most people, when they think of Git, they think of either Git proper, or they think of GitHub, which a lot of people use to host their projects. How is GitLab different? I think that was our biggest question, and probably the biggest question in other people's minds too. When they see GitLab, GitHub, it's like, oh, are they the same thing for people that aren't, in the ecosystem? So tell us a little bit about the differences between GitLab and GitHub.
Yeah, so we started off as an alternative to GitHub, so all the version control you'd expect. But GitLab, because of the contributions by others, it has an enormous feature velocity. So every month we have a new version with 2 or 3 great new features. And it's grown from just version control to also have great planning tools, including like portfolio management. It has CI/CD. Forrester just nominated GitLab as the premier CI tool in the market, so better than alternatives like Jenkins and Travis. And it also has like packaging. It comes with a container registry. It has release management. You can define different environments, and if you push your code, GitLab figures out what programming language it is. It builds it. It tests it. It tests the code quality of your code. It tests whether the code is secure, whether it contains vulnerabilities. It tests the performance. You can deploy it to different environments. If you pair it with, for example, Google Kubernetes Engine, which is sponsoring this show, which we think, by the way, is an excellent product. If you use that, you get a review app. So you can, for every change you made, for every branch you have kind of a staging environment with just that change. And it also does monitoring, because we think you shouldn't deploy into a black hole. You should get feedback about how it's performing. So out of the box, GitLab ships with Prometheus to get you those metrics.
Oh, that's fantastic. Prometheus is a great tool. So, I mean, it sounds like it has a lot of support for a lot of ancillary ecosystems or integrations with other products as well. You mentioned Prometheus and Google Container Engine. I'm assuming that the same is also true, not to pick any favorites, with Amazon and their upcoming Kubernetes service, and Azure as well, or is it strictly Google?
Yeah, you can use GitLab with whatever infrastructure you like. So lots of our users are on bare metal. For example, GitLab Runner that runs CI. You can run that on like Mac OS. You can run it on IBM 360. It's ported to all kinds of different platforms. If you use virtual machines, GitLab CI and CD can auto-scale. So it can automatically instantiate more machines as it's needed with 20 different public and private cloud kind of providers. We think the future is clearly Kubernetes. So you can add Kubernetes clusters to your projects and groups in GitLab, and you can say, look, this cluster is for my staging, this is for my production, and GitLab will make sure it runs the tests and deployments in the appropriate cluster.